Hello there, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we're exploring the hidden depths of Westeros, the characters who never made it to screen, the darker truths, and the prophecies left unspoken. Did you know there is another Targaryen in the books, a young man who claims to be the true heir to the Iron Throne? Or that Catelyn Stark did not stay dead, and now walks the Riverlands hanging those who betrayed her family? If you enjoy what we do here, subscribing helps us reach 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world. Now, let's begin. In the final pages of A Storm of Swords, a group of outlaws pulls a body from the waters of the Green Fork. The corpse has been in the river for 3 days, its flesh pale and rotting, its throat torn where the blade crossed it at the twins. The Brotherhood without banners stands around this ruined thing, and among them is Beric Dondarrion, the Lightning Lord, who has died 6 times and returned each time through the fire of a R'hllor. But this 7th gift of life will not be for himself. Beric leans down and breathes his fire into the dead woman's mouth, and his flame passes from him forever. When her eyes open, they are not the eyes of the mother who loved her children. They are something colder. Lady Stoneheart rises, and the Brotherhood finds a new leader, one who speaks only through the gurgling whisper of her ruined throat, one whose only word is vengeance. In the books, Catelyn Stark returns, and she is utterly without mercy. The woman who once begged for her son's life now sentences Freys to hang from every tree in the Riverlands. She cannot eat, cannot sleep, cannot feel warmth. She exists only to kill those who destroyed her house. The series never showed her resurrection, leaving viewers unaware that death was not the end for the Lady of Winterfell. The young man the world knows as Young Griff has purple eyes and silver hair beneath the blue dye that hides his Targaryen heritage. He was raised on boats crossing the rivers of Essos, educated by a man named Jon Connington, taught to speak multiple languages, to fight, to lead, and most importantly, to believe that he is Aegon Targaryen, the 6th of his name, son of Prince Rhaegar and Princess Elia of Dorne. The story told to him is this: when the Mountain came to sack King's Landing during Robert's rebellion, a baby was swapped, and the infant murdered was not truly Aegon, but a tanner's child bought for this purpose. The real Aegon was smuggled across the narrow sea by Varys, who has spent nearly 2 decades preparing the boy to reclaim his birthright. By the end of A Dance with Dragons, young Griff has landed in Westeros with the Golden Company at his back, taking castles in the Stormlands, preparing to march on King's Landing itself. Whether he is truly Aegon or a pretender, perhaps a Blackfyre descendant, remains one of the great mysteries of the books. The series erased him entirely, giving his storyline and invasion to Daenerys alone. Jon Connington once served as Hand of the King to Aerys Targaryen, and he once loved Rhaegar with a devotion that consumed him. When Robert's rebellion began, Connington was tasked with ending it at the Battle of the Bells, where Robert Baratheon hid wounded in the town of Stony Sept. Connington could have burned the town to flush him out, but he chose honor over efficiency, searching house by house, and Robert was rescued by Eddard Stark and Hoster Tully before he could be found. For this failure, Aerys stripped him of his titles and sent him into exile. Connington spent years drinking himself toward death in Essos until Varys and Illyrio came to him with a purpose: raise the boy they claimed was Rhaegar's son, and put him on the Iron Throne. In the books, Connington has secretly contracted grayscale, the disease turning his hand to stone, and he knows his time is limited. He does not care. If he can see Rhaegar's son crowned before the Grey Death claims him, his life will have meaning. He is a man driven by love, guilt, and the desperate need for redemption, and the series never introduced him at all. Victarion Greyjoy is the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet, brother to Balon and Euron, a man whose hands are hard as iron and whose understanding of the world extends no further than reaving, battle, and the drowned god. When Euron wins the Kingsmoot and sends Victarion to Meereen to bring back Daenerys Targaryen as his bride, Victarion accepts the mission but nurses his own plans. He will claim the Dragon Queen for himself. He will use the Dragonbinder horn against his brother. He will return to the Iron Islands not as a servant, but as a conqueror. Somewhere in the Smoking Sea, Victarion's ship encounters Mokoro, a red priest of R'hllor, whose visions led him to this meeting. When Victarion's hand festers from a wound, Mokoro heals it through fire magic, leaving the flesh charred black but stronger than before, smoking faintly in the cold sea air. Victarion arrives in Slaver's Bay with a fleet, a magic horn, a burning hand, and ambitions that may doom him. None of this appears in the series, where the Greyjoy story was simplified to focus on Yara and Theon alone. The horn, called Dragonbinder, is 6 feet of twisted black Valyrian steel, covered in glyphs that seem to writhe in the light, banded with red gold and dark steel. When it was blown at the Kingsmoot, the man who put his lips to it screamed as fire poured from his mouth, and when he fell dead, they found his lungs had been charred to ash within his chest. Euron smiled at this demonstration. The horn, he explained, binds dragons to the will of its master, but the price of blowing it is death. A man who blows this horn will die, Euron told the assembled Ironborn. But any dragon he sounds it for will be his for eternity. The horn is inscribed with the words, "I am Dragonbinder," and "No mortal man shall sound me and live." Euron plans to have thralls blow the horn, sacrificing their lives to claim Daenerys' dragons for himself. In the books, this ancient weapon of Valyria still exists, sailing toward Meereen in Victarion's flagship, and its true power remains untested on living dragons. The series briefly showed a different horn, but abandoned the Dragonbinder plotline entirely. Euron Greyjoy in the books is not simply a crude pirate with an eye patch. He is a figure of genuine terror, a man who claims to have sailed to Valyria and returned, who wears armor of Valyrian steel, who has drunk shade of the evening until his lips are permanently stained blue. His ship, the Silence, is crewed entirely by men whose tongues he has torn out, ensuring that none can speak of what they have seen him do. Euron has traveled the world and collected dark things. Priests of different religions he keeps in his hold, ancient artifacts, forbidden knowledge. He speaks of the doom and the things that lurk in smoking ruins. He speaks of the deep places between the stars. When he takes Aeron Damphair prisoner, his brother witnesses horrors aboard the Silence that suggest Euron's ambitions extend beyond mere conquest. He wants to become a god. He believes that in the chaos of the coming war, he can ascend to something more than human. The television version of Euron was a swaggering, comedic figure who wanted to marry Cersei. The book version is something far darker, a villain whose true intentions remain terrifyingly unclear. Arianne Martell is the eldest child of Prince Doran of Dorne, and by Dornish law, she is the heir to Sunspear. She does not appear in the series at all. In the books, Arianne is a woman of fierce ambition and sensuality, determined to claim her birthright despite her father's apparent preference for her brother Quentyn. When she learns that Doran has been communicating with Quentyn about succession, she believes herself disinherited and hatches a desperate plot. She will crown Myrcella Baratheon as queen, using Dornish law that places eldest children before males, sparking a war that will give Dorne revenge against the Lannisters. Her conspiracy includes Darkstar, Aerys Oakheart of the Kingsguard, and several companions. It fails disastrously. Aerys dies, Myrcella is wounded, and Arianne finds herself imprisoned by her own father. Only then does Doran reveal his true plans to her. The plans he has harbored for 17 years. The words he whispers in the darkness of his solar. Fire and blood. Arianne's story is one of the book's most complex political threads, and it was completely absent from the show. Doran Martell sits in his wheeled chair, his joints swollen with gout, and the world believes him weak. They believe he did nothing when his sister Elia was slain, when her children were butchered, when the mountain crushed Oberyn in the capital. They are wrong. Doran has been planning since the day the ravens brought word of Elia's death. He reveals to Arianne that he betrothed her brother Quentyn to Daenerys Targaryen years ago, that he has been waiting for the Dragon Queen to grow strong enough to reclaim her throne. Dorne will support the Targaryens when they return. Dorne will have its vengeance. I am not blind, Doran tells his daughter, nor deaf. I know you all believe me weak, frightened, feeble. Your father is not the man he was, you say. He cowers in his chair and does nothing. But I am not the type of man who shouts his plans from the rooftops. I am the grass that hides the viper. In the books, Doran Martell is a patient schemer whose true depths were never explored on screen, where he was killed unceremoniously by the Sand Snakes. Quentyn Martell travels across Essos with 2 companions, seeking Daenerys Targaryen to fulfill the marriage pact his father made years ago. He is not handsome, not charming, not a warrior of great renown. He is earnest and dutiful, a young man trying to do what his father asked of him. When he finally reaches Meereen, Daenerys has already married his Dar, Zo Lorak, and she has no interest in a Dornish prince who arrives with nothing but a fated contract. Quentyn is devastated, but does not give up. If he cannot win the queen, perhaps he can win her dragons. He sneaks into the pit where Rhaegal and Viserion are chained, carrying a whip and a torch, believing that dragon blood runs in his Targaryen-descended veins. He is wrong about what that blood means. The dragons do not recognize him as their master. When Rhaegal opens his mouth, Quentyn Martell's story ends in fire. He lives for 3 days, burned beyond recognition, and his last words are simply, "Oh." His entire journey, his dreams of glory and marriage, his father's carefully laid plans, all end in a pit beneath a pyramid, witnessed by none who loved him. The show never included him at all. The Ghost of Highheart is a tiny woman, ancient beyond measure, who dwells among the stumps of what was once a sacred grove. The hill was a holy place for the children of the forest, and when King Aereg cut down their weirwoods, the children called down a curse that killed him within the year. Now only one remains who remembers the old songs, a woman with red eyes who trades prophecies for the song of Jenny of Oldstones. When the Brotherhood without banners visits her, she speaks of things that will come to pass. She sees a maiden at a feast with purple serpents in her hair, venomed tears upon her cheeks. She sees a shadow with a burning heart who kills a golden stag. She sees a faceless man waiting on a bridge. Her prophecies have consistently proven true, and many believe she was once a friend to Jenny of Oldstones herself, that she was present at Summerhall when the fire consumed the Targaryens, who tried to wake dragons from stone. The series never showed her, though her song about Jenny haunted the final seasons. The prophetess herself remained hidden in the pages. Patchface was once a clever boy, a slave trained in the arts of wit and entertainment, a gift being transported to Lord Stefan Baratheon of Storm's End. When the ship wrecked in Shipbreaker Bay, Stefan and his wife drowned, but Patchface washed ashore 3 days later, alive but utterly changed. His skin had turned gray and white in patches, and his mind had broken into something else entirely. Now he capers through the halls of Dragonstone in his antlered helm, ringing his bells, singing nonsense songs that only Shireen Baratheon finds delightful. But his songs are not nonsense. "The shadows come to dance, my lord. Dance, my lord. Dance, my lord," he sings, and Renly dies to shadow. "Under the sea, the birds have scales for feathers, I know. Oh, oh, oh," he sings, and his words seem to echo things that happen later. Melisandre looks upon Patchface and sees in her flames terrible things, darkness and blood around the Fool, a danger she cannot quite name. "That creature is dangerous," she tells Stannis. "I have seen him in my fires. He is twisted, wrapped in shadows and surrounded by the dead." Whatever Patchface encountered beneath the waves, whatever spoke to him in those 3 days of drowning, it has left him with knowledge no mortal should possess. Penny is a dwarf performer who once entertained at Joffrey's wedding, riding a dog and jousting against her brother Oppo while the king laughed. After Joffrey's death and Tyrion's disappearance, a bounty was placed on dwarf heads, and many little people died as hunters sought to claim the reward. One of them was Oppo. When Penny finds Tyrion aboard a ship crossing to Essos, she attacks him with a knife, blaming him for her brother's death. Tyrion disarms her easily, and though he finds her tedious and her presence uncomfortable, they become traveling companions. Penny believes in kindness, in the goodness of people, in the love she shared with her brother. She tries to teach Tyrion to joust on pigs. She refuses to see the darkness in him that has grown since his escape from King's Landing. For Tyrion, who contemplates murder and revenge constantly, Penny serves as a mirror of the person he is becoming. She is innocence that he cannot corrupt and cannot abandon. Her absence from the show meant the loss of a character who illuminated how far Tyrion had fallen from the witty hero audiences adored. Strong Belwas is a eunuch warrior who served in the fighting pits of Meereen before Illyrio Mopatis bought his freedom and sent him to guard Daenerys Targaryen. He is enormous, his brown belly scarred with a thick white line for every man he has killed in the pits, and he always allows his opponent to cut him once before finishing them, a tradition he maintains even in real battle. Belwas speaks in the third person and thinks primarily of food. When the champion of Meereen rides forth to challenge Daenerys' forces, it is strong Belwas who answers, killing the man and then defecating in the direction of the city walls as an insult. He is comic relief, but he is also genuinely loyal to Daenerys in a way that transcends employment. When the locusts at the Peace Feast are poisoned, it is Belwas who eats most of them, nearly dying but inadvertently saving his queen from the same fate. His absence from the show removed one of the more colorful personalities in Daenerys' entourage, a man who was exactly what he appeared to be, a simple warrior who loved his queen and loved his food. Wyman Manderly is the Lord of White Harbor, the fattest man in the Seven Kingdoms, and he plays the part of Craven superbly. When the Freys demand his loyalty, he bends the knee. When they accuse him of hiding Davos Seaworth, he claims to have executed the Onion Knight and displays a head and hands as proof. But the head belongs to a criminal, and Davos is hidden in the wolf's den, very much alive. In secret, Manderly reveals his true allegiance. The Freys murdered his son at the Red Wedding, and though he smiles and feasts with them, he has not forgotten. The North remembers, he tells Davos in one of the book's most powerful speeches. The mummer's farce is almost done. My son is home. He sends Davos on a mission to find Rickon Stark on the island of Skagos, promising that if a Stark is returned to Winterfell, the North will rise. At the wedding of Ramsay Bolton, Manderly serves 3 enormous meat pies to the gathered lords, and he insists on naming them for the 3 Freys who disappeared on the road from White Harbor to Winterfell. The implication is clear. The Freys are eating their own kin. Manderly smiles, asks for a second slice, and requests a song about the rat cook, who was cursed by the gods for killing a guest beneath his roof. In the show, the Frey pies were given to Arya. In the books, they are Wyman Manderly's masterpiece of revenge. Mance Rayder does not die at Castle Black in the books. The man burned alive by Melisandre is Rattleshirt, the Lord of Bones, his appearance changed by glamour magic. The real Mance is given Rattleshirt's face and sent south on a secret mission by Jon Snow. Infiltrate Winterfell and rescue Arya Stark, whom Jon believes has been married to Ramsay Bolton. Mance travels with 6 spearwives, wildling women skilled in deception and violence, and together they slip into the fortress as musicians and servants. What follows is one of the most tense storylines in A Dance with Dragons. Mance, disguised as a bard named Abel, plays his lute in the Great Hall while his women murder Bolton men in the dark. The snow falls and the castle grows paranoid, with lords found dead in the night and no one knowing whom to trust. Mance succeeds in making contact with the girl called Arya, though readers know she is actually Jane Poole, Sansa's friend, being passed off as a Stark. The escape attempt ends with chaos. Hornblasts, battles, and Mance's fate left uncertain as the snows of winter close around Winterfell. None of this appears in the show, where Mance simply burns, and Ramsay's Winterfell storyline proceeds very differently. Jane, Westerling, is not Talisa Melger. In the books, Robb Stark does not fall in love with a foreign healer on a battlefield. He storms the crag, seat of House Westerling, and is wounded taking the castle. Jane Westerling, the Lord's daughter, tends to his wounds, and in his grief after learning of Bran and Rickon's apparent deaths, Robb turns to her for comfort. He takes her maidenhead, and being Ned Stark's son, he marries her the next morning to preserve her honor, even knowing it means breaking his betrothal to the Freys. Jane is not present at the Red Wedding. Her mother, Sybil Spicer, has been secretly working with Tywin Lannister, feeding her daughter Moon Tea to prevent pregnancy, ensuring the king in the north produces no heir. After Robb's death, Jane is given to another lord, her story essentially over. A quiet end for a girl who never asked to be queen. The show replaced her with an entirely new character, eliminating the layers of Lannister scheming that surrounded the original marriage. Cold Hands appears in the haunted forest beyond the wall, a figure wrapped in black, his hands stained black with old blood, his face hidden behind a scarf. He rides a great elk and commands a flock of ravens, and he helps Samwell Tarly and Gilly reach the Black Gate beneath the Night Fort. Later, he guides Bran Stark's party through the frozen wilderness toward the three-eyed crow. The children of the forest know him. "They killed him long ago," Leaf says when asked about Cold Hands. "He is a white, but not like the others. He retains his will, his purpose, his intelligence. He cannot pass through the wall's wards, suggesting he truly is undead, yet he fights against the others rather than serving them." In the books, his identity remains a mystery. When fans asked if Cold Hands was Bingen Stark, George R.R. Martin's editor noted that the author wrote no in the manuscript margin. The show eventually merged Cold Hands with Benjen anyway, erasing the enigma of who this ancient servant of the children of the forest truly was. Val is called a princess by the Night's Watch, though she insists the Free Folk do not have princesses. She is Dala's sister, and when Dala died giving birth to Mance Rayder's son, Val became the child's guardian. She is tall and beautiful, with honey-colored hair and pale gray eyes, and she walks through Castle Black with the bearing of a queen despite her captivity. Jon Snow finds himself drawn to her, though he can never act on such feelings. Val is not merely ornamental. When Jon needs to negotiate with Tormund Giantsbane, he sends Val alone into the wilderness to find the wildling leader and bring him back, a mission that would be suicide for anyone less capable. She returns with Tormund and his people, having accomplished what no one else could. Val speaks uncomfortable truths about Shireen's grayscale, calling it a sickness that is only sleeping, not cured. She refuses to be near the child. Her instincts about the disease are later proved correct when grayscale becomes a major threat elsewhere in the story. The show never included Val at all, removing a significant figure from Jon's storyline at the Wall. Tyrion Lannister, as presented in the television series, is a witty, sympathetic figure, the clever underdog who drinks and knows things. Tyrion in the books is something more complicated, especially after his escape from King's Landing. In A Dance with Dragons, Tyrion contemplates the murder of his entire family with disturbing regularity. He imagines violence against Cersei and Jaime. He fixates obsessively on the question Tywin could not answer: where do whores go? When he was 13, Tyrion met and married a crofter's daughter named Tysha, believing it was love, until Jaime revealed it had all been a lie, a trick to let Tyrion experience a woman. Tywin then had his guards violate Tysha, while Tyrion was forced to watch and participate, paying her a silver coin for each man. In his final conversation with Jaime before escaping, Tyrion learns a devastating truth. Tysha was not a prostitute. Jaime had lied. She was exactly what she seemed, a girl who loved Tyrion genuinely, and Tywin had her assaulted and sent away because she was not worthy of a Lannister. This revelation shatters Tyrion. In retaliation, he tells Jaime that he did murder Joffrey, a lie, and that Cersei has been unfaithful with numerous men, the truth. He finds Tywin and Shae together and commits the acts that follow. But unlike the show, Tyrion does not emerge as a sympathetic figure seeking redemption. He travels to Essos nursing hatred, fantasizing about returning to Westeros with fire and blood, wanting to watch it all burn. The disfigurement Tyrion carries in the books is far more severe than what the show depicted. During the Battle of the Blackwater, Sir Mandon Moore of the Kingsguard attempts to kill Tyrion, slashing across his face with a sword. Tyrion loses most of his nose. Not a dashing scar across the bridge, but the nose itself, leaving a gaping hole in the center of his face, a cavern that whistles when he breathes. He was already considered grotesque by Westerosi standards, a dwarf with mismatched eyes of green and black, pale hair so blonde it was nearly white. Now he is something that makes people look away. When he smiles, the wound stretches in ways that disturb those who see it. Tyrion knows what he has become. He refers to himself as a monster without irony, and when he looks in mirrors, he sees what his father always saw. The decision to give Peter Dinklage only a scar was understandable for television, but it removed a crucial element of Tyrion's journey. He can no longer charm his way through the world. His wit must carry him entirely, because his appearance now repels rather than merely disappoints. In the books, Tyrion's face is a constant reminder of how the world sees him, and how little that world has ever offered him kindness. Shay's feelings for Tyrion in the books are never what they appear to be on screen. The show portrayed a genuine romance, a prostitute who truly fell in love with her client, whose betrayal at the trial seemed to stem from heartbreak and fear. In the books, Shay is exactly what Tyrion's father accused her of being, a woman who saw an opportunity in a wealthy lord's son and took it. She calls Tyrion her Giant of Lannister, but only when he pays her. She pouts when he cannot give her jewels or rooms in the Tower of the Hand. She never understands the danger she is in, because she never truly understands Tyrion at all. When she testifies against him at his trial, there is no reluctance in her voice, no sense that she is being coerced. She simply tells the lies that serve her new patron, and when Tyrion finds her in his father's bed, wearing the golden chain of the Hand's office, she tries to bargain with him, calling him her giant one last time. Tyrion's hands close around her throat, and he feels very little as the life leaves her. The tragedy is not that love was betrayed. The tragedy is that love was never real, and Tyrion knew it all along but pretended otherwise because the pretense was all he had. The full prophecy of Maggie the Frog contains a word the television series chose not to speak. When young Cersei visited the fortune teller in the woods near Casterly Rock, she demanded to know her future, and Maggie, tasting blood from Cersei's finger, delivered truths that would haunt the queen for decades. 3 questions she was promised. She asked if she would marry the prince, and Maggie said no, she would marry the king. She asked if she would be queen, and Maggie said yes, until another younger and more beautiful would cast her down. She asked about children, and Maggie spoke of the gold of their crowns and the gold of their shrouds. But there was more, a final pronouncement that Cersei has never forgotten. And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. Valonqar is High Valyrian for little brother. Cersei has lived her entire life believing this means Tyrion will kill her, which is why she has hated him with such ferocity since the day her mother died giving him birth. The prophecy hangs over every decision she makes, every paranoid glance at her younger brother, never considering that Jaime too was born after her by mere moments, making him also a Valonqar. The show omitted this part of the prophecy entirely, removing one of the central mysteries of Cersei's character. The House of the Undying in the books contains visions far more extensive and prophetic than what Daenerys witnessed on screen. The warlocks lead her through a door on the right, always the right, through chambers where the walls weep blood and shadows dance without bodies to cast them. She sees a beautiful woman being violated by 4 little men, a representation of the realm being torn apart by the War of the 5 Kings. She sees a feast of corpses holding cups and being served by the dead, the Red Wedding years before it happens. She sees her brother Rhaegar with his wife and newborn son, speaking of the prince that was promised, and the Song of Ice and Fire, declaring that the dragon must have 3 heads. She sees a blue-eyed king who casts no shadow, raising a red sword, a vision of Stannis and his shadow magic. She hears her father speaking to a council about burning cities. Each vision offers a glimpse of past, present, or future, and many have not yet come to pass even by the end of the published books. The show reduced this sequence to a few evocative images and a reunion with Drogo and her son. The book version is a tapestry of prophecy that readers still debate and dissect. Rhaegar Targaryen was obsessed with prophecy in a way the show only hinted at. As a child, he was bookish and melancholy, preferring scrolls to swords, until one day he came to the Master-at-Arms and declared that he must learn to fight. Something he had read convinced him that he was the prince that was promised, the hero destined to defeat the darkness. He trained until he became one of the finest warriors in the realm, though he never loved combat. He played the harp with such beauty that he made listeners weep. He married Elia Martell and had 2 children with her, but when he saw Lyanna Stark at the tourney at Harrenhal, something shifted in his calculations. Elia's health was fragile. She had nearly died giving birth to Aegon and could bear no more children. But the dragon has 3 heads. Rhaegar needed a 3rd child. Whether he fell in love with Lyanna or saw her as a necessary component of prophecy, or both, he crowned her Queen of Love and Beauty with a wreath of winter roses, and the smiles died around the tourney grounds. Within a year, he had taken her from her family, igniting a war that would destroy his dynasty. The books present Rhaegar as a figure of tragic obsession, a man whose pursuit of destiny brought ruin to everyone he loved. Aeron Greyjoy, called the Damp Hair, is a priest of the drowned god who fears one thing above all others: a door. When he was young, before he drowned and was reborn in the faith, he would hear footsteps in the night and see his door creak open, and Euron would enter with his smile and his silence. The books never explicitly state what happened in those visits, but Aeron's terror of his brother runs so deep that he cannot speak of it, even to himself. He calls the Kingsmoot when Balon dies, believing that any king chosen by the captains would be better than Euron on the Seastone chair. He is wrong. When Euron wins, Aeron disappears, captured by his brother and chained in the hold of the Silence. In the sample chapters from the Winds of Winter, Aeron is kept in darkness, fed shade of the evening until his visions blur into nightmare, forced to witness the priests of other religions that Euron has captured and the terrible fates that await them. Euron speaks of killing gods, of using blood magic on a scale never before attempted, of becoming something more than mortal. Aeron's faith in the drowned god begins to crack as he realizes that the monster he feared as a child has grown into something far worse. The show never explored this darker side of the Greyjoy story. The Kingsmoot on Old Wag is an ancient tradition not held for thousands of years, a gathering where the captains and kings of the Iron Islands choose their ruler by acclaim. When Aeron Damphair calls the Kingsmoot after Bolon's death, the candidates present themselves and their claims. Victarion offers strength and naval prowess, the known quantities of a proven commander. Asha offers peace with the North and consolidation of their gains. But Euron Crowseye steps forward with gifts no one else can match. He brings treasures from his voyages, silks from Yi Tai, a horn banded in Valyrian steel that he claims can bind dragons, chests of gold and silver. He speaks of conquest beyond anything the Ironborn have achieved, not just raids, but empire. He will take the Iron Fleet to Meereen, marry Daenerys Targaryen, and return with dragons to conquer all of Westeros. The captains roar their approval, drunk on visions of fire and blood. Euron is crowned with the driftwood crown, and Aeron watches in horror as the monster ascends to power. The show included a version of the Kingsmoot, but stripped away the mystical elements, the horn, and the true darkness of Euron's character, making it merely a political contest rather than the elevation of something terrifying. The crew of the Silence never speaks because they have no tongues. Every man aboard Euron's ship has had his tongue removed, cut out by Euron himself or by his command. They cannot cry out when they are beaten, cannot warn each other of danger, cannot reveal the secrets they have witnessed. When the Silence glides into harbor, it does so in absolute quiet, only the creak of timber and the splash of oars. No voices calling orders or singing sea shanties. This is Euron's design. He has traveled to places no Ironborn has seen and done things no Ironborn would speak of, and he has ensured that no one can ever tell those tales. The silence of his crew is a form of control, but it is also a statement about who Euron is. A man who values secrets so highly that he will mutilate everyone around him to keep them. When Victarion sails toward Meereen with Dragonbinder, he brings members of the Silence's crew to blow the horn, knowing they will die, knowing also that they cannot warn anyone of what is to come. The show's Euron sailed with a normal crew, spoke freely of his plans, and lacked the aura of genuine menace that silence provides. Mokoro emerged from the sea more dead than alive, a massive man with skin black as pitch and flames tattooed across his features in red and orange and yellow. He had been traveling to Meereen to serve Daenerys when his ship was lost, and he drifted for days before Victarion's fleet found him clinging to wreckage. The Red Priest looked upon Victarion and declared that the Lord of Light had shown him this meeting in flames, that their fates were intertwined. When Victarion's hand festered from a wound that would not heal, the Maester counseled amputation, but Mokoro offered another way. Through fire and prayer and magic that left Victarion screaming, the priest healed the hand, transforming it into something that smokes and smolders, charred black but stronger than before. Victarion can crush bones with that hand now, and it never grows cold. Mokoro speaks of visions in the flames, of dragons and glory, but his true loyalties remain unclear. He serves R'hllor, and R'hllor has his own purposes. Whether Mokoro guides Victarion toward destiny or destruction, whether the horn will work as Euron believes or bring ruin upon them all, these questions drive toward Meereen like the fleet itself, unanswered and ominous. Darkstar is Gerald Dane of High Hermitage, a knight of House Dane who is not Sir Arthur Dane, but wishes he had that famous ancestor's reputation. He is pale of hair and dark of eye, handsome in a cruel way, and when Arianne Martell recruits him for her conspiracy to crown Myrcella, he agrees for reasons that remain his own. "I am of the night," he tells Arianne, and there is something unsettling in his smile. When their plot fails and Areo Hota arrives with guards to arrest them, Darkstar does something unexpected and unforgivable. He attacks Myrcella, a child under their protection, slashing at her face with his sword. She survives, but is scarred, her ear cut away. Darkstar flees into the deserts of Dorne, and Doran Martell sends Obara Sand and Balon Swan to hunt him down. His motivations for harming Myrcella are never explained. Perhaps he hoped to ignite the war that Arianne's failed plan could not. Perhaps he simply enjoys cruelty. Darkstar remains at large in the books, a loose thread of violence and mystery. The show mentioned House Dane only in connection to the long-dead Arthur, never introducing this dangerous descendant who lurks in the Red Mountains waiting. The speech that Wyman Manderley delivers to Davos Seaworth in the Wolf's Den is among the most stirring passages in the series. Manderley has just faked Davos's execution to appease the Frys, displaying the head and hands of a criminal in place of the Onion Knights. Now, in private, he reveals his true purpose. His son Wendell died at the Red Wedding, and his son Wylis was held a prisoner by the Lannisters, used as leverage to ensure Manderley's cooperation. Now Wylis is home, and Manderley can speak freely. I drink with Jared, jape with Simon, promise Rhaegar the hand of my own beloved granddaughter, he says of the phrase he entertains. But never think that means I have forgiven. The North remembers, Lord Davos. The North remembers, and the Mummers farce is almost done. He reveals that Rickon Stark is alive, hidden on the island of Skagos, and he asks Davos to bring the boy home. If a Stark returns to Winterfell, the North will rise. This speech, delivered by a man who has pretended cowardice while planning vengeance, encapsulates everything the Northern Lords feel about the betrayal at the Twins. The show never gave Manderley this moment, instead spreading fragments of his defiance across other characters. The so-called Arya Stark who marries Ramsay Bolton at Winterfell is not Arya at all. She is Jane Poole, the daughter of Winterfell's steward and Sansa's childhood friend. After the Lannisters took King's Landing, Jane was separated from the Stark household and given to Littlefinger, who put her to work in one of his establishments. When the Boltons needed a Stark to legitimize their hold on Winterfell, Littlefinger provided Jane, passing her off as Arya since the real Arya was lost. Jane is terrified, broken by years of abuse, aware that she is participating in a lie that could get her killed. Ramsay knows she is not truly Arya, but does not care. She gives him a claim, and her suffering amuses him. In the books, Theon recognizes Jane from their shared childhood at Winterfell, and this recognition becomes central to both their stories. He calls her by her true name, and she begs him to help her escape. Their eventual flight from Winterfell, jumping from the walls into the snow, is a moment of two broken people trying to save each other. The show gave Sansa this storyline instead, but in the books, Sansa remains in the Vale, and it is Jane Poole who suffers in Winterfell. The conspiracy to rescue the false Arya involves not just Mance Rayder, but 6 wildling women who infiltrate Winterfell as washerwomen and servants. They are called spearwives, fighters who have survived beyond the wall through skill and ruthlessness, and they follow Mance because he was their king. One by one, men begin to die within Winterfell's walls. A guard is found with his throat cut. A knight falls from the battlements. Yellow Dick is discovered beneath the snow, frozen and stabbed. The castle grows paranoid as the snows pile higher and the bodies accumulate. No one knows who is responsible. Suspicion falls on various northern lords, on the Freys, on phantoms. Ramsay Bolton rages and tortures, but finds no answers. The spearwives move through the shadows, preparing for the moment when they can take the false Arya and flee. This slow-building tension, the murder mystery within the siege, is one of the most gripping sequences in A Dance with Dragons. The show replaced all of this with a single storyline focused on Sansa and Theon, eliminating the wildling infiltration and the atmospheric dread of killers stalking the frozen halls. Lady Dustin hates the Starks with a cold and patient fury. She was Barbary Ricewell once, young and beautiful, and she loved Brandon Stark with everything she had. Brandon took her maidenhead and rode away, betrothed to Catelyn Tully, leaving Barbary with nothing but memories and resentment. She married Lord Dustin, who went south with Ned Stark to fight in Robert's rebellion and never returned. Ned brought back his bones but not her husband's, leaving Lord Dustin's remains somewhere in the south while he carried his sister's body home to rest in the crypts of Winterfell. Barbary has never forgiven this slight. When she speaks to Theon in the crypts, her bitterness flows like cold water. She speaks of Ned Stark's precious honor, of the maester who taught the Stark boys and filled their heads with notions that took them from her, of the way Southron ambitions destroyed her chance at happiness. She will never let Ned Stark rest peacefully, she declares. She means to find his tomb and desecrate his bones. Lady Dustin is technically allied with the Boltons, but her true loyalty is only to herself and her grievances. The show never introduced her, or explored the complex resentments that simmer beneath northern politics. All the Stark children are wargs in the books, not just Bran. Jon Snow dreams of running through snow-covered forests, seeing through ghosts' eyes, feeling the hot blood of prey on his tongue. Arya wargs into cats in Braavos without realizing what she is doing, using their eyes to see while the kindly man believes her blind. She also dreams as Nymeria, leading a massive pack of wolves through the Riverlands, hundreds of beasts that have gathered around the direwolf queen. When outlaws or soldiers venture into certain forests, they do not return. The wolves have been feeding well. Even Robb showed signs of warging ability, his connection with Grey Wind so strong that some believed the wolf was the source of his tactical genius. The show focused exclusively on Bran's abilities, treating them as unique, but George R.R. Martin made clear that the gift runs in Stark blood. The direwolves were never merely pets, but extensions of their bonded humans. And even in death, even across the narrow sea, the connections persist. Arya dreams of her wolf most nights, and Nymeria waits in the Riverlands, growing in power, perhaps waiting for the day her girl comes home. Arya's wolf Nymeria leads what may be the largest pack of wolves in the history of Westeros. When Arya was forced to drive her away to save her from Cersei's wrath, Nymeria vanished into the Riverlands and began to gather other wolves around her. By the time of A Feast for Crows, reports filter in of a great she-wolf leading hundreds of lesser wolves, attacking anyone who ventures too deep into certain forests. The pack has grown too large to feed through normal hunting, so they hunt men. Soldiers, outlaws, travelers, anyone unfortunate enough to cross their path. Some say the wolves drag corpses from the rivers, feeding on the dead that the war has created. In Arya's wolf dreams, she runs with her pack, tearing into prey, reveling in the hunt. She pulls her mother's body from the waters of the Green Fork, the corpse of Catelyn Stark, though Arya does not fully understand what she is seeing. Nymeria has become a legend in the Riverlands, a monster to some, a spirit of vengeance to others. The show mentioned her once when Arya encountered her briefly, but the books present Nymeria as a force of nature, waiting across the narrow sea for a reunion that feels inevitable. The true appearance of Daario Naharis bears no resemblance to the handsome sellsword of the television series. In the books, Daario dyes his hair blue, matching the blue of his beard, which he wears in 3 prongs stiffened with wax. His mustachios are painted gold. A single golden tooth gleams when he smiles. He wears loud clothing in garish colors and carries a sword and stiletto with hilts shaped like naked women. He is flamboyant to the point of absurdity, a peacock among crows, and he knows exactly the effect he creates. Daenerys finds herself drawn to him despite knowing he is dangerous, perhaps because he is dangerous. He makes me feel alive, she thinks, and in her dreams he comes to her bed smelling of blood and battle. The show cast conventionally handsome actors and gave Daario ordinary styling, transforming him from a memorable eccentric into a generic love interest. The book version is impossible to forget. A killer who dresses like a carnival performer, whose every gesture declares that he lives without fear of death or judgment. Jorah Mormont in the books is older, balder, and far less romantic a figure than the man who pined for Daenerys on screen. He is described as not handsome, with a plain face, excessive body hair, and a personality that veers between gruff and desperate. His feelings for Daenerys are genuine but uncomfortable, a middle-aged exile fixating on a girl young enough to be his daughter. When he kisses her without permission, she is disturbed rather than secretly pleased. When she discovers he was informing on her to Varys, her sense of betrayal is absolute. She banishes him, and unlike in the show, she does not relent. Jorah wanders Essos in search of redemption, capturing Tyrion Lannister to bring as a gift, contracting grayscale in the ruins of Valyria, fighting in slave pits, spiraling ever downward. By a dance with dragons, he has become a pitiful figure, clinging to hope of returning to his queen's favor, sickening from a disease that will eventually consume him. The show gave him a cure and a noble death. The books leave him struggling, possibly doomed, a man whose love has brought him nothing but ruin. The ages of characters in the books differ drastically from their television counterparts. Daenerys Targaryen is 13 years old when she is married to Khal Drogo, a child bride sold by her brother in exchange for an army. Robb Stark and Jon Snow are 14 when the series begins. Bran is 7 when he climbs the tower and sees what he should not see. Sansa is 11, dreaming of princes and songs. Arya is 9. These are children navigating a world of adult violence, forced to make decisions that would break grown men and women. George R.R. Martin wrote their ages deliberately, highlighting the cruelty of a society that treats children as pawns in political games. When Robb goes to war, he is a boy leading boys, and when he dies at the Red Wedding, the king in the north has not yet lived 17 years. The show aged up nearly every character for obvious reasons, and in doing so, softened the horror of what happens to them. The books spare no one the discomfort of watching children suffer the consequences of their elders' choices. Stannis Baratheon in the books is a far more complex and sympathetic figure than the grim fanatic portrayed on screen. He is a man who has spent his entire life being overlooked, the middle brother who held Storm's End during a siege that nearly starved him to death, only to watch Robert give the castle to Renly afterward. He ground his teeth at every slight, every honor given to others, yet he served dutifully because duty was all he understood. When he claims the Iron Throne, it is not from ambition but from a rigid sense of justice. He is the rightful heir by law, and law must be upheld. His relationship with Melisandre is more nuanced in the books. He uses her magic because it works, but he is not entirely her puppet. He questions, he doubts, he struggles with the cost of what she asks. When Davos confronts him about the shadow that killed Renly, Stannis admits that he saw his brother's death in a dream, that part of him willed it, and that the guilt haunts him still. he calls himself a man who loved his brother once. The show leaned heavily into Stannis as villain, particularly with Shireen's burning. The books have not yet reached that point, and Stannis remains at the wall, grinding his teeth and doing his duty, a man easier to respect than to love. The burning of Shireen has not occurred in the published books, though George R.R. Martin confirmed to the showrunners that it will happen in some form. What differs is the context. In the show, Stannis burns his daughter in desperation during a snowstorm, seeking victory against the Boltons. In the books, Stannis is not even present at Castle Black where Shireen remains. He has marched on Winterfell and become trapped in the snows, his army starving, horses dying, men turning to cannibalism. Shireen is hundreds of miles away with her mother Selyse and Melisandre. If the burning happens, it will be under different circumstances, perhaps with different people making the terrible choice. Some readers speculate that Melisandre will convince Selyse to sacrifice their daughter to bring Jon Snow back from death, or to wake a dragon from stone, or for some other purpose tied to prophecy. The show collapsed timelines and locations, placing Stannis at the pyre. The books may reveal that the horror was not a father's desperate gamble, but something else entirely, a sacrifice made without his knowledge or consent, adding new dimensions to an already devastating event. The battle in the snows outside Winterfell has not yet been fought in the books, and the armies gathering there differ significantly from what the show portrayed. Stannis Baratheon marches with an army that includes northern mountain clans fiercely loyal to the Starks, men who came not for Stannis but because he promised to rescue Ned's girl from the Boltons. They are willing to die for that cause. The Manderleys march with Stannis as well, though their loyalty is questionable in all directions. Inside Winterfell, the Boltons command Freys, Dustins, Ricewells, and other northern houses whose commitment wavers as the snows pile higher and the murders continue. Stannis sends a letter ahead of his army, captured in the books as the infamous Pink Letter that reaches Jon Snow at the Wall, claiming Stannis is dead and demanding the return of various hostages. But many believe the letter is a lie, perhaps written by Ramsay, perhaps by someone else entirely. The true battle has not happened. The winds of winter will reveal how Stannis fares against the Boltons, whether the northern conspiracy succeeds, and what becomes of the various players trapped in Winterfell's frozen hell. The show gave us an answer. The books have left the question open. Jon Snow's assassination at Castle Black differs in crucial details from the television version. In the books, Jon has just received the Pink Letter, a message claiming Stannis is dead. Mance Rayder has been captured, and demanding that Jon send Ramsay his bride, his reek, and various hostages. Jon reads this letter aloud to the gathered Night's Watch and wildlings, then announces his intention to march on Winterfell himself. This is the breaking point. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch declaring personal war on a Lord of the Realm violates every oath Jon has taken. When the knives come, they come from brothers who believe Jon has forsaken the Watch for wildling causes and stark vengeance. Bowen Marsh, the man who orchestrates the assassination, weeps as he stabs Jon. For the Watch, they say, and there is genuine anguish in their betrayal. The show portrayed the mutineers as simple villains led by Alliser Thorne. The books present them as men who believed they were saving the Night's Watch from a Lord Commander who had lost his way. Jon's death is not mere murder, but the consequence of choices he made, oaths he bent and broke, wildlings he saved at the cost of his brother's trust. Bloodraven, the three-eyed crow who guides Bran to the cave of the Children of the Forest, is one of the most significant figures in Westerosi history. He was born Brynden Rivers, bastard son of King Aegon IV Targaryen and his sixth mistress. An albino with red eyes and a red birthmark shaped like a raven across his face, he was a sorcerer, a spy master, and eventually Hand of the King. He commanded a network of informants so vast that people said he had 1,000 eyes, and the one being his own, Red Eye. He fought in the Blackfire rebellions, killed Demon Blackfire himself with arrows from the legendary bow made of weirwood. He served as Hand under multiple kings before being sent to the Wall as punishment for murdering a man under a flag of truce. He became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and then vanished beyond the Wall in 252 AC. When Bran finds him, Bloodraven has merged with the roots of a weirwood, one eye socket occupied by a root, his body more tree than man. He has lived for over 120 years, sustained by the old gods and the Children of the Forest. The show never named him or explained his history, presenting him simply as an old man in a tree. The books reveal a legend. The Children of the Forest in the books are not the simple nature spirits the show suggested. They are an ancient race who once ruled all of Westeros, before the first men came with bronze axes and cut down their sacred groves. They warred against humanity for thousands of years before making peace and sharing their knowledge. But the children carry secrets they do not share with Bran. They created the others. In desperation during the wars against the first men, the children took one of the invaders and pressed dragon glass into his heart, transforming him into something new, a weapon against their enemies. That weapon turned against them all. The others cannot be understood without understanding that they were made as instruments of war, created by the very beings who now hide from them in caves beneath the earth. The children who remain are few, their magic fading, their role in the world diminishing to whispers and memories. Leaf, who guides Bran through the tunnels, speaks of her people watching the centuries pass, waiting for an ending they can sense approaching. The show revealed the other's origin in a single flashback. The books weave the horror more deeply into the mythology, making the children themselves partly responsible for the long night that threatens to come again. The glass candles of Old Town have begun to burn again for the first time in centuries, and the Meisters of the Citadel are deeply troubled. These candles are made of obsidian, dragon glass, and once they required no flame to give light. They simply glowed when magic was strong in the world. The Valyrians used them to communicate across vast distances, to see through flames, to penetrate the darkness of any room. When dragons died and magic faded, the candles went dark. Now they burn once more. Archmaester Marwyn, called the Mage, has one such candle in his chambers, and he uses it to observe events far away. He tells Samwell Tarly that the gray sheep of the Citadel, the Maesters who deny magic's existence, have worked for centuries to suppress the supernatural, that they helped bring about the extinction of dragons, because dragons are magic made flesh. Marwyn believes that dark forces within the Citadel will try to destroy Daenerys and her dragons. He leaves, immediately, for Meereen to offer his services before his colleagues can stop him. The show never explored this conspiracy of Meisters or the burning candles. In the books, Old Town holds secrets that could reshape understanding of magic, history, and the coming war. Samwell Tarly's journey to the Citadel occupies far more narrative space in the books than the brief scenes the show provided. He travels by ship with Maester Aemon, Gilly, and her baby. watching the ancient Targaryen grow weaker with each passing day. Aemon speaks of prophecy in his fever, of Daenerys being the prince that was promised, of dragons and fire and the terrible things to come. He dies at sea, one of the last Targaryens, and Sam must convince the captain not to throw his body overboard so he can be burned properly. When Sam reaches Old Town, he enters a city that rivals King's Landing in size and history, dominated by the high tower that rises 800 feet above the harbor. He meets Archmaester Marwyn, who tells him of the conspiracy and departs for Meereen. He encounters a fellow novice named Pate, who died in the prologue of A Feast for Crows, and has been replaced by a faceless man wearing his face. Something is hunting in Old Town, seeking something in the Citadel's vast libraries. The show sent Sam to the Citadel for a cure for Jorah's grayscale. The books send him into a web of secrets, magic, and murder that has barely begun to unravel. Euron Greyjoy in the books possesses a suit of Valyrian steel armor, complete with a helm shaped like a kraken. Valyrian steel armor is so rare that perhaps only 2 or 3 sets exist in the known world. The secret of its making died with Valyria, and even a single blade of the metal is worth more than most lords earn in a lifetime. Euron wears an entire suit of the stuff, scaled and shimmering with dark iridescence, taken from some voyage he refuses to fully explain. He claims to have sailed into the smoking sea and returned, a feat considered impossible, and the armor is proof that something extraordinary occurred during his travels. When he stands before the assembled lords of the Iron Islands at the Kingsmoot, the armor marks him as something beyond an ordinary reaver. He has been to places no Ironborn has seen, and come back with treasures no one else could claim. What else did he find in those cursed waters? What did he learn in the ruins of the Freehold? The show's Euron wore ordinary leathers and spoke of ordinary ambitions. The book's Euron walks in Valyrian steel and speaks of becoming a god. The tale of Nimble Dick Crab leads Brienne of Tarth through the Crownlands on a search that ends in tragedy and revelation. Dick is a small-time crook who claims to know where a fool and a high-born girl have been taken, and Brienne pays him to guide her there, hoping to find Sansa Stark. He speaks constantly, telling her of local legends, of the Whispers, a ruined castle where his ancestor Sir Clarence Crabb once lived, a man who cut off the heads of his enemies and brought them home to talk to. Brienne listens and waits, suspicious that Dick is leading her into a trap. She is right, but not in the way she expects. At the Whispers, she finds not Sansa, but Shagwell the Fool from the Brave Companions, and 2 of his equally cruel companions. They kill Nimble Dick, who dies trying to warn Brienne, and she fights them alone in the ruins. As Dick bleeds out, Brienne realizes he was telling the truth all along. He was simply trying to earn honest gold for the first time in his life, and it cost him everything. She buries him, as he asked, near the Whispers where his ancestors lived, and she pays a septon to pray for his soul. It is a small, sad story that the show never had time to tell. Brienne's fight with Rorge and Biter is far more brutal in the books than anything the show depicted. After killing Shagwell at the Whispers, Brienne continues her search for Sansa and encounters Rorge wearing the Hound's helm, leading what remains of the Brave Companions in rape and murder across the Riverlands. Brienne fights him and kills him, but then Biter attacks. He is a monster of a man, files having sharpened his teeth to points, and he bites chunks from Brienne's face as she struggles beneath his weight. He chews her cheek, tears at her flesh, would have killed her had Gendry not arrived to drive a spear through his neck. Brienne survives but is horribly wounded, her beauty destroyed by the teeth of a madman. She is taken prisoner by the Brotherhood without banners, brought before Lady Stoneheart, and given a choice: kill Jaime Lannister or be hanged. She refuses to choose, and the rope tightens around her throat. Only at the last moment does she scream a word, something that saves her life, though what word and what bargain remains unclear. The show never included Lady Stoneheart, so Brienne's confrontation with her never occurred, and her face remained unscarred. The Brotherhood without banners under Lady Stoneheart's leadership has become something very different from the outlaw band that once followed Beric Dondarrion. Beric gave the fire of life to Catelyn, and in doing so, he gave up his warmth, his mercy, his willingness to judge fairly. The Brotherhood now hunts Freys and Lannisters with single-minded purpose. They do not hold trials anymore. They simply hang their prisoners from any convenient tree. When they capture Brienne and Podrick Payne, along with a hedge knight named Sir Hyle Hunt, Lady Stoneheart sees only enemies. Brienne carries a sword given to her by Jaime Lannister, forged from Ned Stark's own blade. She carries a letter signed by the Lannisters. She protests that she is searching for Sansa to protect her, but Stoneheart cannot hear reason. The creature that was Catelyn Stark knows only that her children are dead or missing, that the world betrayed her, and that everyone who carries Lannister tokens must die. The rope goes around Brienne's neck. The last we see, she has screamed something to save her life, and later she appears to Jaime, leading him somewhere at Lady Stoneheart's command. What trap awaits him, what bargain Brienne has made, remains one of the great unanswered questions of the series. Sir Barristan Selmy's role in Meereen extends far beyond what the show portrayed. When Daenerys disappears on Drogon's back, Barristan effectively takes control of the city, serving as hand to a queen who is not present. He navigates the treacherous politics of Meereen, dealing with the Shavapate who wants war, the Green Grace who may be conspiring with the enemy, and the approaching armies of Yunkai and its allies. When battle finally looms, it is Barristan who leads the forces of Meereen against the slavers, planning a sortie to break the siege before the city falls. In the sample chapters from The Winds of Winter, Barristan rides out at dawn, leading freedmen and unsullied against the enemies of his queen. The battle has not been completed in published form, but Barristan lives long enough to fight it, unlike the show where he died in an alley to the Sons of the Harpy. George R.R. Martin keeps his old knight alive, perhaps because he has more for him to do, perhaps because Barristan's story of redemption and service is not yet complete. Hisdar, Zo Loraq's guilt or innocence in the poisoning attempt against Daenerys remains ambiguous in the books. At the Great Peace Feast, locusts are served that have been coated with poison. Strong Belwaz eats most of them and nearly dies. Daenerys does not eat because she dislikes the taste, which saves her life. The question of who poisoned the locusts has never been definitively answered. Hisdar is an obvious suspect as Daenerys' new husband and a man with deep ties to the Meereenese nobility. The Shavapate believes Hisdar is guilty and uses the assassination attempt to justify a coup. But some readers note that Hisdar himself ate the locusts freely and encouraged Daenerys to eat them, which would be strange behavior for an assassin. Perhaps the Green Grace is responsible, working with the Yunkai to remove the foreign queen. Perhaps the Shavapate himself arranged the poisoning to frame Hisdar and seize power. The show simplified this to make the sons of the Harpy responsible for everything. The books leave the mystery unsolved, another thread waiting for the winds of winter. The Myrinese Blot, as readers have come to call the complex storyline in Slaver's Bay, involves far more factions and characters than the show ever attempted to portray. There are the pit fighters seeking glory, the former slaves seeking revenge, the noble families seeking to preserve their power, the Yunkai seeking conquest, the Volantine fleet sailing with them, the sellsword companies switching sides for gold, and the various religious figures claiming to speak for their gods. Daenerys tries to hold it all together through compromise and marriage, abandoning pieces of herself in the process. She eats of the locusts of peace as she thinks of it, swallowing unpleasant truths to prevent war. When she flies away on Drogon, she leaves behind a city on the brink of collapse, and the chapters that follow show that collapse in slow, agonizing detail. Barristan and the Shavapate argue over how to rule. Victarion's fleet approaches with Dragonbinder. The Yunkai tighten their siege. Everything Daenerys built threatens to crumble in her absence. The show resolved Meereen quickly so Daenerys could sail for Westeros. The books linger in the complexity, showing that building a new world is harder than burning an old one. The true history of Summerhall is one of the great mysteries of the Targaryen dynasty. On the day Prince Rhaegar was born, King Aegon V attempted to hatch dragon eggs through some magical ritual involving fire. The exact nature of what he attempted remains unknown. What is known is that Summerhall, the beautiful castle the Targaryens had built as a summer retreat, burned to the ground. Aegon V died in the flames, along with his son Duncan the Small and many others. The prince that was promised entered the world as his family perished in fire. Rhaegar was forever marked by this tragedy, drawn to sadness and prophecy, convinced that his birth amid such destruction meant something. He visited the ruins of Summerhall throughout his life, sitting among the ashes, playing his harp, weeping for reasons no one fully understood. Some believe Aegon was trying to fight back against the Maesters who had suppressed magic, to bring dragons back before the Citadel could stop him. Some believe the ghost of Highheart was present and foresaw everything. The full truth is locked in documents that George R.R. Martin has promised to reveal eventually. The show never mentioned Summerhall at all. The bond between the Stark children and their direwolves runs far deeper in the books than the show ever explored. When Robb Stark went to war, Grey Wind fought beside him, and men said the wolf could sense ambushes before they came, could smell treachery in the hearts of men. Before the Red Wedding, Grey Wind refused to enter the twins, snarling at the gates, trying to warn his master of the danger within. The Freys insisted the wolf be kennelled, and Robb, wanting peace, agreed. It was a decision that cost him everything. During the massacre, Grey Wind broke free and killed several Freys before being brought down by crossbow bolts. The Freys sewed his head onto Robb's body afterward, a final desecration. In the books, this bond is mystical, part of the old magic of the North. The wolves are not pets, but partners, extensions of the Stark children's souls. When Lady died, something in Sansa died with her. Her connection to the North, her ability to see through southern lies. When Grey Wind died, the king in the North lost more than a companion. He lost part of himself. The truth about Tysha haunts Tyrion throughout his journey in the books in a way the show never fully captured. Tysha was the crofter's daughter Tyrion found on the road when he was 13, the girl he saved from attackers and fell in love with. the wife he married in secret before Tywin discovered the match. Jaime told Tyrion that Tysha was a prostitute he had hired to give his little brother confidence with women. Tywin then had his guards take Tysha, one after another, paying her a silver coin for each man, forcing Tyrion to go last and pay her a gold coin because Lannisters are worth more. Tyrion believed for years that his first love was nothing but a whore playing a role. Then, as he fled King's Landing, Jaime confessed the truth. Tysha was real. She was exactly what she seemed, a common girl who genuinely loved Tyrion. Everything Tywin did to her, he did to a real wife, a true love. This revelation shatters Tyrion. Throughout A Dance with Dragons, he asks everyone he meets, where do whores go? He is searching for Tisha, for redemption, for proof that he did not ruin the only person who ever loved him for himself. The question becomes his obsession, his prayer, his curse. The relationship between Cersei and Jaime in the books has deteriorated far more severely than the show depicted. In A Feast for Crows, Cersei becomes increasingly paranoid and tyrannical after Tywin's death, and Jaime watches her transform into something he does not recognize. She arms the faith militant, empowers religious fanatics, destroys alliances through arrogance, and takes various men to her bed, confirming every rumor Tyrion told Jaime before escaping. When Cersei is arrested by the faith and forced to confess her sins, she sends a letter to Jaime begging him to come save her, to be her champion in trial by combat. Jaime reads the letter, the desperate pleading of the woman he has loved since before memory, the twin who was his other half. Then he throws it in the fire and rides away. The break between them is complete. Whatever love Jaime once felt has been replaced by disgust, not only at what Cersei has become, but at himself for enabling her for so long. The show kept them together until the end, dying in each other's arms. The books send Jaime on a different path, one that leads toward Lady Stoneheart and away from his sister forever. Catelyn Stark's hatred for Jon Snow in the books reaches depths the show only hinted at. In one of her chapters, Catelyn recalls a time when Jon was very young and fell gravely ill, when the Maester feared he might die. Catelyn went to the Sept and prayed, but not for his recovery. She prayed for his death. She wanted this motherless child to stop existing, to stop reminding her every day that Ned had loved another woman enough to bring shame upon their marriage. Then guilt consumed her, and she prayed instead that if the gods let Jon live, she would love him. She would ask Ned to give him the Stark name. She would be a mother to him. Jon survived, but Catelyn could not keep her promise. She could not love him. She could not even be kind. Every time she looked at Jon, she saw her husband's betrayal, and she hated herself for her weakness as much as she hated the boy for existing. This confession appears only in her thoughts, never spoken aloud, a private shame she carries to her grave. The show portrayed Catelyn as cold to Jon, but never revealed this darker prayer, this moment when she wished death upon a sick child, and then could not forgive herself for the wish or for failing to overcome her resentment. The Blackfire rebellions shaped Westeros for generations, and may still be shaping it through young Griff's claim to the throne. House Blackfire began when King Aegon IV legitimized all his bastards on his deathbed, including Daemon Waters, to whom he had given the Targaryen ancestral sword Blackfire. Daemon took the sword's name as his own, and later claimed the Iron Throne, sparking a civil war that divided the realm. The Blackfires were defeated at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, where Daemon and his twin sons died. but his descendants continued pressing their claim for 5 generations. Maelis the Monstrous, the last known Blackfire, died in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, supposedly ending the line. But some readers believe the line survived in the female descendants, and that young Griff is not Rhaegar's son, but a Blackfire pretender, raised by Varys and Illyrio to take the throne by deception. Illyrio's second wife was named Sarah, with pale hair and purple eyes, possibly of Blackfire descent. Their son might be young Griff himself. The show never mentioned the Blackfires at all, erasing a century of history that may be crucial to understanding who young Griff truly is. The faceless men in the books operate by rules far more complex than simple assassination. When Arya trains in the House of Black and White, she learns that the many-faced god is death itself, worshipped under different names by every culture. The Stranger, the Lion of Night, the Black Goat of Qohor. The faceless men do not merely kill for coin. They offer the gift of death to those who pray for it, and they answer contracts only after determining that the death serves their god's purpose. The price they charge is always dear, sometimes requiring everything a person has, because death is precious and should not be given cheaply. They can change their faces through a combination of magic and actual faces harvested from the dead who come to their temple seeking release. When Arya dons a face, she experiences memories of the person it belonged to, glimpses of lives that ended in the House of Black and White. The kindly man teaches her that to become truly faceless, she must become no one, abandoning Arya Stark entirely. She struggles with this requirement because she cannot stop being a wolf. The show compressed her training and simplified the philosophy. The books present the faceless men as something between assassins and priests, serving a god that offers peace through ending. The true nature of the others remains far more mysterious in the books than the Night King and his army suggested on screen. George R.R. Martin has never called them the White Walkers, a term invented for the show. They are the others, cold and elegant, beautiful in a terrible way, with flesh pale as milk and eyes like blue stars. They wear armor that shifts and shimmers, and they carry swords of ice so cold they shatter steel. When they speak, their voices sound like cracking ice, a language no human understands. In the books, only one other has been killed on page, by Samwell Tarly's obsidian dagger, and the mystery of what they want remains unanswered. They are not simply an army seeking to destroy all life. Old Nan's stories speak of the long night when they came with cold and darkness, when the last hero sought them out to end the war. The Night's King of Legend was a Lord Commander who fell in love with a woman with skin cold as ice, possibly another herself. There are hints of treaties, of children given to the cold gods, of arrangements made and broken. The show gave the others a single motivation and a convenient weakness. The books suggest something stranger and more ancient, a purpose we do not yet understand. Maester Aemon's death at sea is one of the most poignant passages in the books, an old man drifting toward the end, while his mind wanders through a century of memory. He was born Aemon Targaryen, son of King Maekar I, and he refused the throne when it was offered to him, taking the Black instead, so that his brother Aegon could rule without a rival. He served at Castle Black for decades, watching his family fall one by one, unable to help them because of his vows. In his final days, fevered and failing, Aemon speaks of prophecy, of the prince that was promised, of how the error has been in the translation all along. The Valyrian word for prince has no gender, he realizes. It could mean princess. Daenerys is the one, not Rhaegar, not Jon, but the girl with dragons. The dragon must have 3 heads, he whispers, and fire and blood. He calls out for his brother Egg, the boy who became King Aegon V and died at Summerhall. Egg, I dreamed that I was old, he says, and then he is gone. Sam burns his body on a pyre in Braavos, the last rites for a man who was born a dragon and died a crow. The mystery of the shrouded lord drifts through the fog of the sorrows like a fever dream, and Tyrion nearly meets him during his passage through the ruins of the Rhoyne. The shrouded lord is said to be the ruler of the Stone Men, those afflicted with grayscale who dwell in the cursed remains of Croyane, the greatest city of the Rhoynar before Valyria destroyed them. Some say he is Prince Garren himself, the leader who called down a curse upon the Dragon Lords and was hung in a cage to watch his city drown. The curse succeeded. The Valyrians who sacked Croyane sickened and died, and the fog that rose from the river brought grayscale to all who breathed it. In the books, Tyrion passes through the sorrows on a poleboat and is attacked by stone men during a fog that rolls in unnaturally. Jon Connington contracts grayscale pulling Tyrion from the water. Some editions contain a chapter where Tyrion dreams of meeting the Shrouded Lord himself, though this scene was cut and reworked. The show sent Jorah and Tyrion through Valyria instead, changing the location and the infected character. The books keep the sorrows and their cursed lord, a reminder that old magic and older grudges still haunt the rivers of Essos. Illyrio Mopatis harbors secrets that the books have only begun to reveal. The fat magister of Pentos, who sheltered Viserys and Daenerys, who arranged her marriage to Drogo, who sent Barristan and strong Belwas to serve her, clearly has plans that extend beyond simple profit. In the books, Tyrion travels with Illyrio's retinue and notices things that do not quite fit. Illyrio keeps a chest containing the clothing of a young boy, garments too small for him, preserved with care. He speaks wistfully of a second wife named Sarah, who had pale Valyrian features and died of grayscale. When Tyrion asks why Illyrio supports the Targaryen cause so fervently, the Magister hints at rewards beyond gold, at promises made long ago. The implication, never stated directly, is that young Griff may be Illyrio's own son, raised to believe he is Aegon Targaryen to put him on the Iron Throne. If true, Illyrio's support of Daenerys was always temporary, a means to gain dragons for the boy he truly loves. The show kept Illyrio as a background figure and never explored his deeper motivations or his connection to Varys' decades-long conspiracy. Varys and Illyrio have known each other since they were young men in Pentos, and their partnership forms the hidden architecture of much that happens in the story. Illyrio tells Tyrion of their early days. Varys was a beggar thief who used his little birds, orphan children trained to spy and steal, to gather secrets and treasures. Illyrio was a bravo, a sellsword of some skill. They worked together, Varys learning secrets and Illyrio selling them, until they became rich and powerful. But their true purpose was always larger than gold. Varys is a eunuch who was cut by a sorcerer, and during the cutting, he heard a voice in the flames that spoke his name. Whatever he heard convinced him of something that has driven him ever since. He speaks of serving the realm, of wanting peace and prosperity for the common people, of believing that the right ruler can save Westeros from itself. Whether young Griff is truly Aegon, or a Blackfyre, or something else entirely, Varys believes this boy is the answer. The show revealed Varys as a Targaryen loyalist, but never explored the mystery of the voice in the flames, or his decades-long relationship with Illyrio. The horn of Joramun is said to have the power to bring down the wall, and the wildlings have been seeking it for generations. According to legend, Joramun was a king beyond the wall who allied with the Starks to defeat the Night's King, and he possessed a horn that could wake giants from the earth. Mance Rayder believed he found it in a grave in the Frostfangs, a massive war horn 8 feet long, banded in old gold with runes of the first men carved along its length. When Stannis defeated Mance and Melisandre burned him, she burned the horn as well, claiming it would bring down the wall if sounded. But Jon Snow later discovers that Mance substituted a different horn for the burning. The true horn of Joramun, if it exists, may still be hidden beyond the wall, or it may be something else entirely. Tormund Giantsbane jokes that the horn is his member, but beneath the jests, the wildlings take the legend seriously. If such a horn exists and falls into the wrong hands, the wall that has protected the realms of men for 8,000 years could come crashing down. The show destroyed the wall through the Night King's magic. The books may yet destroy it through an ancient horn and a desperate choice. Dalla died giving birth to Mance Rayder's son, and that child carries a secret Jon Snow has kept from almost everyone. Melisandre wanted the boy because king's blood flows in his veins, the blood of the king beyond the wall, and she would have burned him to wake dragons or work some other magic. Jon could not allow this. He switched the babies, sending Mance's son south with Gilly, while Gilly's own child, fathered by her own father Craster, remained at Castle Black. Sam takes the wildling prince to Old Town, believing he is bringing Gilly's baby. Gilly knows the truth and weeps every night for the son she left behind. The son who will be raised as another man's child, while she raises a prince as her own. Val knows as well and keeps the secret. When Melisandre looks upon the baby at Castle Black, she sees nothing special, because Craster's son has no king's blood to call her flames. Jon has saved Mance's heir at the cost of Gilly's peace and his own honor, adding another betrayal to the list of things he does for the greater good. The show never included this switch, allowing Gilly's baby to be simply her own throughout. The pink letter that arrives at Castle Black near the end of A Dance with Dragons shatters Jon Snow's fragile neutrality and sets in motion his assassination. The letter claims to be from Ramsay Bolton, written on pink paper sealed with a smear of something that might be blood. It declares that Stannis is dead, his army broken, Mance Rayder captured, and his spearwives killed. It demands that Jon return Ramsay's bride, Ramsay's Reek, the wildling Princess Val, the wildling Prince, and Melisandre, or Ramsay will come to Castle Black and cut out Jon's heart to eat. The letter calls Jon a liar, a turncloak, and a bastard. Jon reads it to the gathered Night's Watch and wildlings, and announces his intention to march on Winterfell, breaking his vows as Lord Commander. This decision precipitates his murder. But readers debate whether Ramsay truly wrote the letter. It lacks his usual flayed man seal. It contains information Ramsay might not know. Some believe Stannis wrote it as deception, or Mance wrote it to provoke Jon, or someone else entirely created it to bring Jon south. The truth remains hidden, waiting for the winds of winter to reveal who sent the pink letter and why. Theon Greyjoy's transformation into Reek occupies far more space in the books, and his psychological destruction is rendered in excruciating detail. Ramsay does not merely torture Theon's body, but systematically erases his identity, forcing him to forget his own name, to answer only to Reek, to believe he deserves everything that happens to him. He removes fingers and toes, flays skin, breaks teeth, does things that Theon cannot think about directly even in his own chapters. By the time we encounter Theon in A Dance with Dragons, he is a creature that barely remembers being human. His hair has turned white. His face has aged decades. He flinches at sounds and smells and apologizes constantly for offenses he has not committed. When he recognizes Jane Poole being passed off as Arya, something stirs in the ruin of his mind. He knows this girl. He knew her as a child at Winterfell, when he was a different person, when he had a name. The recognition becomes the first crack in Reek's conditioning, the beginning of Theon Greyjoy's painful resurrection. His jump from the walls with Jane is not just escape, but rebirth, a choice to be something other than Ramsay's creature. The show compressed this arc significantly. The books linger in the horror and the slow return of selfhood. The differences between Book Ramsay and Show Ramsay are subtle but significant. Both are monsters, sadists who take pleasure in the suffering of others. But Book Ramsay is physically unprepossessing, fleshy and plain, with a sour smell despite constant washing and eyes like dirty ice. He surrounds himself with men as cruel as himself, his bastards' boys, who participate in his hunts and torments. When he hunts women through the forest with his hounds, he names the dogs after the girls he has caught, and the hounds remember their names, answering to Beth and Kira and Jez. If the prey gives good sport, Ramsay kills her quickly before assaulting the corpse and flaying her skin. If she bores him, she dies more slowly. These hunts are not merely rumor, but established fact in the books, described by witnesses and survivors. Ramsay's cruelty has a pattern and a purpose. He enjoys breaking things, people most of all. He broke Theon because Theon was proud. He breaks Jane because she is convenient. The show's Ramsay was portrayed by a handsome actor and given certain strategic competencies. The book's Ramsay is uglier, stupider, and in some ways more frightening because his evil has no larger purpose. He simply enjoys what he does. The North's conspiracy against the IA Boltons operates on multiple levels that the show never had time to explore. Wyman Manderley works openly to avenge his son while pretending loyalty. The Mountain clans march with Stannis because any Stark is worth dying for. Lady Dustin nurses her private hatreds while positioning herself for whoever wins. The Umbers have split their house, with the Great John, a prisoner of the Freys and his kin, playing both sides until they see which way the wind blows. Robert Glover, whose castle was sacked by the Ironborn, has traveled to the Free Cities seeking sellsword companies. Howland Reed, the reclusive lord of Greywater Watch who was with Ned at the Tower of Joy, has made no move at all, and no one knows what secrets he keeps about Jon Snow's parentage. Even the serving women in Winterfell whisper of the Ned's little girl and the monsters who hold her. The North remembers, but it remembers in 100 different ways, each lord and lady nursing grievances and plotting revenge according to their own purposes. The show simplified this to a single battle and a few loyal houses. The books present a web of conspiracy that may yet strangle the Boltons from within. Sir Barristan Selmy narrates chapters in A Dance with Dragons that reveal his inner thoughts for the first time, after decades of watching him from the outside. He thinks constantly of his failures. The kings he served who did not deserve his service, the chances he did not take, the woman he loved and could not have because of his white cloak. He remembers Ashara Dane, who haunts him still, beautiful and lost. He thinks of Rhaegar, whom he believes would have been a great king, and of the children who died when King's Landing fell, whose bodies he saw wrapped in Lannister crimson. Barristan is old, and knows he is old, his best years behind him, his sword arm not what it was. He stays awake at night wondering if he made the right choice in serving Daenerys, a queen so young she reminds him of all the rulers he has watched make terrible mistakes. But he believes in her. He believes she can be the queen Westeros needs if she lives long enough to reach it. His chapters are elegiac, the meditations of a man nearing the end of a long life, still trying to do honor to his vows. The show gave the Barristan a sudden death. The books give him space to reflect on what a life of service has meant. The political situation in Volantis threatens to erupt in ways that could reshape the entire world of Essos. Volantis is the oldest and proudest of the free cities, ruled by 3 triarchs elected from among the Old Blood, the families that can trace their lineage to Valyria itself. The city is built on slavery, with 5 slaves for every free man, and the slave population grows more restless as word of Daenerys Targaryen spreads. She has freed slaves in Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen. She has dragons. To the slaves of Volantis, she is a messiah. Red priests preach in the streets that she is Azor Ahai reborn, the one who will deliver them from bondage. When Tyrion passes through Volantis, he sees the tension everywhere. Slaves wearing tattoos of tears and flies, free men nervous on their hat haze, elephants and tigers painted on walls representing the political factions that vie for control. The tigers want war against Daenerys. The elephants want peace and trade. The red priests want revolution. Volantis has sent its fleet to join the siege of Meereen, but if Daenerys survives and turns west, Volantis may be the first city to rise in her name. The show never visited Volantis in depth. The books set it up as a powder keg waiting for a spark. The religion of Arhalar spreads through Essos and Westeros like fire itself, and its priests see significance in the dragon's return. Melisandre is only one of many red priests, and she is not even among the most powerful. Moqorro, who travels with Victarion, has visions that seem clearer and magic that seems stronger. Benero, the high priest in Volantis, preaches openly that Daenerys is Azor Ahai, and that the faithful must prepare for war against the darkness. The Red Priests have been waiting for this moment for centuries, since the Doom destroyed Valyria and the dragons died out. Their prophecies spoke of a hero reborn amid salt and smoke, wielding a sword of fire, leading the living against the dead. Now dragons fly again, and the priests believe their god's champion has arrived. But Rhaelar's servants do not always agree on who that champion is. Melisandre believed it was Stannis, then seemed less certain. Moqorro speaks of Daenerys. Others may have their own candidates. The faith of the Lord of Light is not a unified church but a scattering of zealots, each reading the flames according to their own understanding. The show used Melisandre as the face of the religion. The books show a faith in ferment, mobilizing for a holy war. The Ironborn saying, "What is dead may never die, but rises again harder and stronger," takes on darker meaning when applied to their king. Euron Crowseye seems to believe that he has died in some sense and returned as something more. He speaks of sailing to Valyria, of visiting warlocks in Korth, of experiencing things that broke his understanding of the world and rebuilt it in a new shape. In the sample chapters from the Winds of Winter, Euron binds priests to the prows of his ships before battle, blood sacrifices to the sea and sky. He drinks shade of the evening until his lips are perpetually blue. He speaks of the apocalypse as an opportunity, of the long night as a chance to rise above mortality. "I am the storm," he tells his captives. "I am the godliest man ever to raise sail. You serve one God, but I have served 10,000. From Ib to Ashai, when men see my sails, they pray." Euron's ambition extends beyond the Iron Throne. He wants to become a god himself, and he believes the chaos of the coming winter will allow him to achieve apotheosis. The show gave us a pirate who wanted to marry a queen. The books give us something closer to a dark messiah, steering toward revelations too terrible to imagine. Marwyn the mage leaves Old Town for Meereen, with a warning that chills Samwell Tarly to the bone. The Citadel, he explains, has worked for centuries to suppress magic, to eliminate knowledge of the supernatural, to ensure that the world remains explicable through reason alone. The Grey Sheep, as he calls the Meisters, helped kill the dragons the first time. They sent men to court after court, advising kings to let their dragons die, to not hatch new eggs, to embrace a world without fire. When the last dragon died, small and stunted and sick, the Maesters celebrated in their secret hearts. They thought they had won. Now dragons have returned, and Marwyn knows what his colleagues will do. They will try to kill Daenerys. They will try to extinguish the fire before it spreads. He takes the glass candle and a ship and races toward Slaver's Bay, hoping to reach the Queen before the Citadel's agents do. Samwell is left in Old Town with this knowledge, among men who may be his enemies, studying to become one of them. The conspiracy Marwyn describes would recontextualize everything the Maesters have done throughout the story. The show never hinted at such depths beneath the gray robes and chains. The Quiet Isle is a refuge where broken men find peace, and it may be where Sandor Clegane found his own. When Brienne of Tarth visits this holy place in her search for Sansa, she speaks with the elder brother, a former knight who took vows after surviving a war that shattered him. He tells Brienne that the Hound is dead. He is certain of this because he buried the man himself, found him dying by the trident, wounds festering, and fever burning through him. The elder brother gave him the gift of mercy. But as Brienne leaves, she notices a novice digging graves on the hillside, a massive figure taller than any man she has seen, his face hidden by a scarf, his leg injured, and beside him rests a dog that was once savage but now seems gentle. The novice does not speak. The brothers call him the Gravedigger, and they say he has found peace in his silence. Readers have long believed this is Sandor Clegane, alive but transformed, the Hound dead even if the man survives. The show eventually confirmed Sandor's survival and gave him a dramatic ending against his brother. The books leave him digging graves on a quiet isle, suggesting that some stories end not with violence, but with silence and soil and the slow work of healing. Sir Robert Strong joined the Kingsguard after Cersei's imprisonment, a champion who would fight for her in trial by combat. He never speaks, he never eats, he never removes his helm. He is 8 feet tall, broader than any living knight, and he moves with mechanical precision. When Grand Maester Pycelle questions his identity, suggesting the man should show his face before being anointed, Cersei's creature Qyburn dismisses the concerns. Sir Robert has taken a vow of silence, Qyburn explains, that will last until all of King Tommen's enemies are defeated. But everyone who looks upon this silent giant suspects the truth. Gregor Clegane's head was supposedly sent to Dorne after his death from Oberyn's poisoned spear. What walks in that white cloak may be his body, animated by Qyburn's dark arts, the skull replaced by something else or nothing at all. The show confirmed this as The Mountain Reborn. The books maintain the horror through uncertainty, through the wrongness of a thing that should not exist walking the halls of the Red Keep, waiting for the moment it can kill again. Qyburn was stripped of his master's chain for conducting experiments that violated every code the Citadel holds sacred. He studied the boundary between life and death, opened living men to see how their bodies worked, pushed the limits of what flesh could endure. The gray sheep expelled him in disgust. When the brave companions found him in the ruins of Harrenhal, they kept him as their healer because he could do things other Meisters could not. Now he serves Cersei, and she has given him permission to continue his research in the black cells beneath the Red Keep. The things he does to prisoners there are never explicitly described, but the screams echo through the stone, and what emerges from his workshop sometimes wears armor and serves the queen. Qyburn speaks softly and kindly. He calls Cersei by endearments. He seems genuinely fond of her in his way. But behind his gentle manner is a mind that sees human beings as material, as problems to be solved, as opportunities for discovery. He is perhaps the most dangerous man in King's Landing because he has no limits, and now he has power. The show used him as a plot device. The books present him as a horror wearing a maester's robes. The faith of the Seven has risen to power in King's Landing in ways that threaten to consume the crown itself. When Cersei armed the faith militant, she believed she was creating a tool to use against the Tyrells and their influence. She did not understand that tools can turn in the hand. The High Sparrow, as the small folk call him, is a barefoot septon who preaches humility and justice, who feeds the poor and shelters the sick. He is also utterly incorruptible and absolutely certain of his righteousness. When he looks upon the sins of the nobility, he sees souls in need of cleansing, whether they wear rags or crowns. The faith militant includes the warriors' sons, knights who have renounced lands and titles to serve the Seven, and the poor fellows, common men and women with star-shaped brands on their foreheads, who patrol the roads and enforce the faith's laws. They answer to no lord but the High Septon. They recognize no authority but the gods. When they arrest Cersei herself, the crown discovers too late that it has created a power it cannot control. The show resolved this with wildfire and violence. The books leave the faith ascendant, the High Sparrow patient, and the future of the Seven Kingdoms uncertain. The sailor's wife in Braavos keeps a candle burning in her window every night, waiting for her husband who will never return. She was once a young woman who fell in love with a sailor, and he married her before his ship departed. He promised to return for her. The ship was lost with all hands. Now she works in the Happy Port, and she will only take a man to her bed if he marries her first. So every night she is a wife again, and every morning she is a widow again. She has a daughter, a young prostitute called Lana, who has golden hair and green eyes, Lannister coloring, and the sailor's wife speaks sometimes of Lana's father who promised to take her away to a castle. Some readers believe the sailor's wife is Tysha, the crofter's daughter Tyrion, married and lost, the woman whose fate has haunted him across 2 continents. If true, she survived what Tywin's guards did to her, fled across the narrow sea, and ended up in a brothel in Braavos, still performing the ritual of marriage because once it meant everything to her. Tyrion asks everyone he meets where whores go. He has never thought to look in Braavos. The show never included this thread or this possibility. The books plant the seed and let readers wonder. The tale of the rat cook is told at the night fort, and Wyman Manderley invokes it deliberately when he serves his meat pies at Winterfell. The rat cook was a member of the Night's Watch who killed a king's son, cooked him in a pie, and served him to his own father. The gods were not angry at the murder itself, nor at the cooking, nor at the feeding. The gods were angry because the rat cook killed a guest beneath his own roof, violating the sacred laws of hospitality. For this crime, he was transformed into a massive white rat, doomed to eat his own offspring forever, always hungry, never able to fill the void inside him. When the Freys murdered Robb Stark at the Twins, they violated guest right in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. Walder Frey invited the king in the north beneath his roof, fed him bread and salt, and then orchestrated his slaughter. By every law of gods and men, the Freys are cursed. Wyman Manderley knows this, and when he bakes 3 Freys into pies and serves them at Winterfell, he invokes the rat cook's legend with full awareness of what it means. He asks for a song about the rat cook. He smiles as the Freys eat. Justice in Westeros sometimes takes terrible forms. The Red Wedding in the books contains details that make the massacre even more devastating than what appeared on screen. Grey Wind kills several Freys before crossbow bolts bring him down, fighting to reach his master even as the hall fills with blood. Catelyn's mind breaks in her final moments. She claws at her own face, tearing her skin, screaming with a grief beyond sanity. The small John Umber overturns a table to shield Robb from crossbow bolts, buying his King Precious seconds before he is killed himself. Daisy Mormont fights with a mace she tears from the wall, taking down a Frey knight before she falls. The brutality extends beyond the hall. The northern camp outside is massacred. Thousands of men killed in their tents, and the Freys and Boltons display the bodies afterward, sewing Grey Wind's head onto Robb's corpse and parading it through the camps. The scene haunts every chapter that follows, echoing through the nightmares of survivors, the songs of singers, the whispers of small folk who speak of the gods' judgment on House Frey. The show captured the horror. The books multiply it, showing the aftermath, the desecration, and the poison that the Red Wedding releases into Westerosi politics forever. The Purple Wedding in the books is threaded with clues that allow attentive readers to solve the mystery of who killed Joffrey. The Tyrells are present, and Olenna Tyrell adjusts Sansa's hair during the feast, touching the silver hairnet she was given. That hairnet contained amethysts, but one of them was a strangler crystal, the poison that closes the throat. When Tyrion pours wine for Joffrey and the king drinks, the poison is already in the cup, dropped there by hands that moved unseen. The show revealed this plot fairly directly. The books scatter evidence across multiple chapters, requiring readers to piece together the conspiracy. Littlefinger explains some of it to Sansa afterward, but even his explanation may not contain the whole truth. The Tyrells needed Joffrey dead before he could harm Margaery with his cruelties. Littlefinger needed Joffrey dead to destabilize the realm and to frame Tyrion, removing Sansa's husband so she could be spirited away. Multiple motives converged on a single cup of wine. The boy king died choking on his own ambition, and those who murdered him walked away unpunished, hidden behind the chaos of Tyrion's trial. The story of brave Dany Flint is a song the Night's Watch sings, a tale of a girl who disguised herself as a boy to join the Black Brothers. She kept her secret through the training, through the vows, through the long watches on the wall. But eventually she was discovered, and what happened to her is not spoken directly, only hinted at in the song's mournful verses. She was used and then discarded, her bravery rewarded with violation and death. The song is melancholy, a reminder that the Night's Watch is not a place of honor, but a dumping ground for criminals, exiles, and desperate men. When Arya thinks of disguising herself as a boy, she sometimes hears this song in her memory. The Wall is no place for women because the men who serve there cannot be trusted. Brave Dany Flint wanted glory and found only grief. Her ghost is said to haunt the Night Fort, weeping in the dark, one of many spirits that linger where the Watch once kept its primary castle. The show never mentioned her. The books use her song to underscore the darkness that has always lurked beneath the Night's Watch's noble mission. Jon Snow's decision to let the wildlings through the Wall is far more controversial in the books and involves sacrifices the show never showed. He gives them lands in the gift, the territory south of the Wall that has lain empty for generations. He agrees to take wildling recruits into the Night's Watch, men who were enemies days before. He sends rangers north with them to retrieve their women and children. He borrows money from the Iron Bank of Braavos to buy food for thousands of additional mouths. Each decision makes sense from Jon's perspective. The wildlings are not the enemy, the others are, and every wildling who dies north of the Wall is another corpse for the army of the dead. But his brothers do not see it this way. They see their Lord Commander betraying everything the Watch has stood for, letting the savages who killed their friends become their neighbors. When Bowen Marsh weeps as he stabs Jon, those tears are genuine. He believes he is saving the Night's Watch from a commander who has lost his way. The tragedy is that both men think they are doing the right thing. The show simplified this to mere villains. The books present it as a clash of principles where everyone loses. The Knight of the Laughing Tree appeared at the tourney at Harrenhal, a mystery that has never been definitively solved. This small knight wore mismatched armor and bore a shield painted with a smiling weirwood tree. They challenged 3 knights whose squires had beaten Howland Reed, demanding that they teach their squires honor. The knight won all 3 jousts, asked only that the squires be disciplined, and then vanished. King Aerys, paranoid as always, believed the knight was an enemy and sent Rhaegar to discover their identity. What Rhaegar found is never stated, but some believe he found Lyanna Stark, that she was the knight who defended Howland Reed, and that this meeting sparked everything that followed. When Rhaegar crowned Lyanna Queen of Love and Beauty instead of his wife Aelia, he may have been acknowledging what he learned that day. The Knight of the Laughing Tree may be the key to understanding why Rhaegar did what he did, why he chose Lyanna, why the realm bled. The show mentioned the tourney, but not the Mystery Knight. The books place this small story at the center of the tragedy, a riddle whose answer changes everything. Howland Reed was with Eddard Stark at the Tower of Joy, and he is one of only 2 survivors of that fight. What happened there? What Ned found in the tower? What promise he made to his dying sister? Howland Reed knows all of it. He has never left his castle at Greywater Watch in the years since, never told his tale to anyone except perhaps his children, Mira and Jojen. The Cranach men are a secretive people who live in moving castles amid the swamps of the Neck, impossible to find unless they wish to be found. Howland has kept his silence through war and peace, through Robert's reign and Joffrey's, through all the chaos that has consumed Westeros. Some readers believe he is waiting for the right moment to reveal Jon Snow's true parentage. Some believe he has other secrets. Knowledge of the old gods, or the children of the forest, or the magic of the first men. The show revealed Jon's parentage through Bran's visions. The books have kept Howland Reed off stage, a witness to history who has not yet chosen to speak. When he finally emerges from his swamps, everything may change. Jojen Reed's fate in the books remains ambiguous in a way the show chose to resolve. He traveled beyond the wall with Bran, guiding him toward the three-eyed crow through green dreams that showed the way. By the time they reached the cave of the children of the forest, Jojen was weak and despairing, speaking of the green consuming him, of knowing too much about what was to come. Some readers believe he knew he would die in that cave and went anyway. A theory called Jojen paste suggests that the children of the forest killed him and fed his blood to Bran in the weirwood paste that awakened his full powers. The paste is described as having a bitter taste with something like blood in it. Jojen disappears from the narrative after Bran eats it. Mira speaks of her brother in ways that suggest grief. Nothing is confirmed, but the possibility that Bran's power came at the cost of his friend's life, fed to him without his knowledge, adds a layer of horror to his story. The show killed Jojen during the White attack outside the cave. The books leave his fate uncertain and his possible sacrifice deeply disturbing. The island of Skagos lies off the eastern coast of the north, and it is a place of dark reputation. The Skagosi are said to be cannibals who still practice the old ways in their most brutal forms. They rebelled against Stark rule a century ago, and the war to bring them to heel cost thousands of lives, including a Lord of Winterfell and hundreds of his men. Since then, the island has been largely left alone, its lords paying nominal fealty while doing as they please in their fog-shrouded home. Unicorns are said to live there, though most Meisters believe these are simply shaggy horses misidentified by sailors. When Wyman Manderley reveals that Rickon Stark is alive, he says the youngest Stark boy is on Skagos with the wildling woman Osha, hiding among the cannibals where no one would think to look. He sends Davos Seaworth to retrieve him. If Davos succeeds, if Rickon can be brought back to rally the North, the Bolton's hold on Winterfell will shatter. But Skagos is dangerous, and Rickon has been living among its people for years. What kind of boy has he become? The show killed Rickon with an arrow. The books send him to an island of cannibals and unicorns, waiting to see what emerges. The Golden Company broke its contract for the first time in its history to support young Griff's invasion of Westeros. For a company of sellswords, their word is their bond, the foundation of their reputation and their livelihood. They have never broken a contract in all the years since Igor Rivers founded them after the first Blackfire Rebellion. Bitter Steel, as Aegor was called, was a Targaryen bastard like Bloodraven, but they were enemies who fought on opposite sides of the Civil War. When the Blackfires lost, Bittersteel fled to Essos and founded the Golden Company from the exiles, men who had lost everything fighting for the Black Dragon. They kept the skulls of their commanders dipped in gold, and their war cry was, "Beneath the gold, the bitter steel." For this company to break a contract for the first time in history, for Aegon Targaryen or whoever young Griff truly is, suggests that the cause means something special to them. If young Griff is a Blackfire, the Golden Company is not abandoning their principles, but finally fulfilling their purpose, bringing the Black Dragon home. The show never included the Golden Company's history or its possible Blackfire connection. The books weave a century of backstory into their arrival on Westerosi shores. The great ranging that Lord Commander Mormont led beyond the wall ended in catastrophe at the fist of the first men, and the books describe that battle in frozen horror. Thousands of whites attacked in waves, corpses of wildlings and animals and ancient dead things that had waited in the ice for years beyond counting. The Night's Watch had obsidian weapons from the cache Jon found, but not enough. Never enough. Men died screaming as dead hands pulled them down. The others watched from the edges of the battle, pale shadows on dead horses, letting their servants do the killing. Sam survived by accident, by hiding, by being too afraid to stand and die like the brothers around him. The retreat from the Fist was a nightmare march through snow and darkness, survivors straggling toward Craster's Keep while the dead followed. The show depicted the aftermath. The books take readers into the battle itself, the chaos of fire and ice and the terrible understanding that the Watch is overmatched, that all the courage in the world means nothing against an enemy that feels no pain and cannot be killed by normal steel. The secret that Bran discovers in the cave of the three-eyed crow extends beyond mere green sight into something that changes his understanding of identity itself. When Bran enters the Weirwood network, he can see through the eyes of any heart tree, anywhere in the world, at any point in history. The Weirwoods remember everything. They witnessed the children of the forest carving faces into their bark. They witnessed the first men breaking the pact. They witnessed Brandon the Builder raising Winterfell and the Wall. Bran sees his father praying in the Godswood, and when he calls out, Ned seems to hear something, a whisper on the wind. The past is not entirely fixed. The Green Seers can touch it, influence it, perhaps even change it in ways that have already happened, that have always happened. Time becomes a circle with no clear beginning or end. Bloodraven warns Bran that this power is dangerous, that he must not try to alter what was. But the temptation is immense. If Bran could reach back far enough, could speak clearly enough, could he prevent the tragedies that destroyed his family? Could he warn his father about Littlefinger, his brother about the Frys? The show used Bran's powers sparingly. The books suggest depths of temporal manipulation that remain largely unexplored. Septon Maribald walks the Riverlands with a dog named Dog, bringing the faith of the Seven to small folk who have suffered through years of war. When Brienne travels with him, he delivers a speech about broken men that stands among the most powerful passages in the series. He speaks of boys who march to war with dreams of glory, who learn quickly that war is mud and blood and hunger and fear. Their lords die or abandon them. Their armies scatter. They lose their way home and lose their names and lose their humanity, becoming the broken men who haunt the roads, stealing to survive, killing because they no longer remember how to do anything else. Almost all are common-born, simple folk who had never been more than a mile from the house where they were born until the day some lord came round to take them off to war, Maribald says. He does not excuse what broken men do, but he explains them, and in explaining them, he indicts the lords and kings who create them. The speech recontextualizes every bandit and outlaw in the story, reminding readers that most violence comes not from evil, but from desperation, from systems that use men up and throw them away. The show never included Maribald or his wisdom. The books give him space to speak truth. The final pages of A Dance with Dragons leave nearly every storyline suspended in crisis, threads dangling over chasms with no bottom in sight. Jon Snow lies bleeding in the snow at Castle Black, stabbed by his own brothers. Daenerys wanders the Dothraki Sea, sick and starving, while a Colossar approaches. Tyrion has joined the Second Sons outside the walls of Meereen as battle begins. Cersei has completed her walk of atonement, but faces trial by the faith. Jaime has ridden off with Brienne toward an unknown fate at Lady Stoneheart's hands. Stannis prepares for battle in the snows outside Winterfell. Young Griff conquers castles in the Stormlands. Euron gathers power in the Iron Islands. Sam studies in Old Town as a faceless man walks the Citadel. Arya trains in Braavos, still clinging to her identity as a Stark. Bran sits beneath a weirwood tree, learning to see through time. The realm stands on the edge of winter, dragons in the east and others in the north, and the Game of Thrones continues without resolution. The show provided endings, satisfying or not. The books remain unfinished, their characters frozen in moments of transformation, waiting for pages that have not yet been written. And so we wait, with them in the quiet darkness, as snow falls on stories yet untold.